From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello, everyone. I'm Peyton Manning's new agent, also known as Jaime Hixson.
And I'm Peyton Manning's business manager, also known as Eric Rosen.
So happy that you could join us this evening. I'm not sure if you could see this right now, but if you can get through the glare, we actually have an autographed photo of Peyton in a Broncos jersey. This is kind of a tribute to Mr. Manning as he moves forward into the new chapter of his post-football life. We have so much stuff to discuss right now. In addition to him riding off into the sunset, we have a lot of stuff to discuss. And right now, Kenny Graham is on the other side of the glass, but he's actually double dipping tonight because not only is he going to be in here, he's also going to be in the big studio taking care of my good friend Al Lambert, who's going to be pre-recording his self-titled show coming up next. So I just want to give a quick shout-out to my dear friend Al Lambert, who you may know as the man behind the now defunct Manfredi card chain, now known as the Staten Island card chain. But now he's going to be doing his show over here. Just to give you an idea about what Al has done, not only has he been a successful car dealer, he's also had a really accomplished career as a singer. He has had so many great moments in his singing career. Rodney Dangerfield actually asked him to tour with him way back in the day, but he actually turned Dangerfield down because he had to think of his family. But that's how great of a singer that he was, that Rodney Dangerfield would actually tour or ask him to tour the country.
I get no respect.
Yeah, that just goes to show you how much respect Rodney Dangerfield gets. When Al Lambert turns him down for a tour opportunity, you know that you're lacking in the respect category. But on the bright side, we got a lot of stuff to discuss over here. And first and foremost, this guy finally called it a career. I mean, we could give out so many numbers just to give you an idea what this guy has done in his career. But let's look at the particulars. 200 wins as a starting quarterback, including playoffs, the most in NFL history. Yeah. 5 most valuable player awards,
Which is an NFL record.
Another NFL record.
2 Super Bowl victories in 4 appearances with 2 different teams. Nobody's ever done that. And he's the oldest starting quarterback at the age of 39 to win a Super Bowl, surpassing his boss from Denver, John Elway, who did it at the age of 38.
And in those 4 Super Bowl appearances, he had a different coach each time.
Which is really something, you know. Not many players get to even make that many Super Bowls with different coaches. Like, it's unbelievable. When you think of the quarterback Terry Bradshaw, he was with Chuck Noll for every Super Bowl.
Terry Bradshaw had Chuck Noll.
Tom Brady had, of course, Bill Belichick.
And they're still working together after 16 years together.
Which is unbelievable. While this guy went through 4 different coaches, and the guy that he won with, Gary Kubiak, was John Elway's backup.
John Elway's backup quarterback for 9 years, which is amazing considering that those 2 guys go back about 33 years together as far as a working relationship is concerned. Who would have thought that Gary Kubiak would actually work under John Elway in 2 different capacities?
And what about Wade Phillips? You know, it's crazy. He was a head coach of the Broncos, and he had a stint as a defensive coordinator there years ago, way before Super Bowl 50.
Wade Phillips has paid a lot of dues. Of course, everybody knows about his dad, Bum Phillips, who was a successful coach with the former Houston Oilers and then coached the Saints. But
Did he
Wade,
wear that 10-gallon hat?
Yes, he did. He was very well known for his 10-gallon hat. Wade Phillips paid a lot of dues in the NFL, coaching the Broncos and the Bills and the Cowboys and so many other different NFL teams.
I think what's really great, what really got him back was when he was the defensive coordinator for the Houston Texans, when Kubiak was the head coach at that time. Because that was a moment when Wade Phillips' career was in a bit of a tailspin.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the Houston defense before Wade Phillips took over was in the bottom of the league, like 25th or 25th in defense. And he turned that 25th defense into a number 1 rated defense. And that really showed. And years later, after Kubiak, of course, was let go by Houston and Wade Phillips didn't exactly have a job anymore, the two of them would reconnect this year together again. And look what happens. One of the best defenses in the league.
Yeah.
And a good coach that brought a whole new offensive system to this Denver team. Now, but the focus really today is
this guy who played the same amount of years as his famous jersey number, 18. He wore it with the Colts, and he wore it with the Broncos.
14 years with the Colts. Isn't that something?
14 years with the Colts, played in 2 Super Bowls with them. Everybody thought that his career was done after his his neck surgery, after the 2010 season, which he wound up missing the 2011 season.
Actually, it was in 2011 when he missed. He actually was there in 2011 for a bit, but there was 4 different quarterbacks at that time. You had even Painter as the
Curtis Painter was one of the guys who was taking the snaps from center during that disastrous 2-14 season. Now do you see how important it is for a franchise to have a franchise quarterback? And as it turns out, because Peyton missed that year and the Colts won 2 games, they drafted Andrew Luck.
I was there. In 2012. I was at my very first NFL draft that very night. Waited a long time the night before to get my bracelet to go see what at that time was touted as a great quarterback tandem in the first 2 spots. Really, you think about that year, the excitement was in the air, and you had Andrew Luck drafted number 1 at Stanford. When you had Jim Harbaugh coaching him.
Yeah, and the guy who wound up being drafted second, Robert Griffin III.
From Baylor.
Out of Baylor. He wound up getting released by the Redskins today.
Which is not shocking because considering that in the beginning of that rookie season, everything was great about him. He really was able. He had one of the best rookie. He was the rookie of the year in 2012. He had the most rushing yards, not as many passing yards as Andrew Luck, but still he had great stats that year. Then came the dreaded playoffs.
Yeah,
that's what really was the beginning of the end on that freak injury he had against Seattle in the wild card round. And then afterwards, things just were not the same for Robert Griffin III. He couldn't run the ball like he didn't have that elusive speed like he used to have. Everything just pretty much went downhill, and as you saw it mentioned today,
released by the Skins. And after his rookie season, he started 20 games in 3 years and lost 15 out of 20 starts in that span.
And he suffered multiple injuries, and there are times where he couldn't do what he liked to do best, run the ball.
Now it's gotten to the point where he has to become a pocket passer for his next NFL team, which means he needs to be more accurate and he needs to see the field better. But that begs the question, what NFL team is there that can mesh with Griffin's skill set?
Oh, there's San Francisco, for instance, that could possibly mesh with him. There's the Los Angeles Rams that could use a starting quarterback. Cleveland could use a starting quarterback. Dallas, his hometown, he could be the backup to Tony Romo. There are at least 4 teams that I just said right there that he could either be a backup or a starter.
There's one other team that I think he would be really good for. The Houston Texans.
I was actually thinking Miami, possibly.
Maybe even the Miami Dolphins, because they've gotten really sour with Ryan Tannehill.
29 wins. That's all he's had.
29 wins in 4 years. He's barely been. I don't even think he's been a 500 quarterback. He's under 500 for his career.
6 games under 500, and it's not getting any. But you know what? Adam Gase coming this year to Miami could be really a godsend for the Dolphins. He's worked well with quarterbacks. He did wonders with Peyton Manning, in fact, for the years he was his offensive coordinator. He was great last year helping Jay Cutler's turnover numbers go down in Chicago, despite the fact that they didn't have a winning season or they didn't get into the playoffs. So I think he could work well with Ryan Tannehill, but if Griffin is there, maybe it would push Tannehill
Yeah.
to be a better quarterback.
Yeah, we'll see about that because Tannehill just signed a big contract with the Dolphins, and he's got a lot to live up to. But getting back to this guy,
Yes.
do you have a Peyton Manning memory of him as a player?
Man, there's so many. I think one of my favorite Peyton Manning moments was really not this Super Bowl, but I would say the very first Super Bowl that they won, Super Bowl 41 against the Chicago Bears, or the one season that he had with Marvin Harrison, where he connected with him a record 183 times. Like that was probably one of the most special relationships I've seen between a receiver and quarterback. When you think of like Rice and Montana, those special relationships between quarterback and receiver.
He had two great receivers to work with on the Colts, Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne. And think about it. Peyton threw for more than 71,000 yards for his entire career. I think 10,000 to 20,000 of those yards might have gone to those two receivers.
Oh, without a doubt. They were his go-to receivers in the years with Indianapolis, along with Dallas Clark, one of his go-to tight ends, that he got to work with.
Yeah.
So, and what I love about Peyton was his ability under center to call the plays. And when he recognized that a defense was about to turn on him, when he recognized the defensive scheme that was about to take place, he was able to pre-snap change the play and call an audible. Not many like him to do that. I call him the commander-in-chief under center because he truly was.
It's amazing. He's the son of a former quarterback, Archie Manning, who had a great career at Mississippi and really did not get a fair shake when he played for the Saints and the Oilers.
The paper bag fans?
Yeah, when he played for the Saints and the Oilers and the Vikings. His numbers were okay, save for all of the turnovers that he committed, but he really did not get a fair shake when he played specifically for the Saints because he played on some woeful squads down in New Orleans in the era of the Aints and the paper bag fans.
I know. It was really terrible. But you know what?
And somehow, Peyton was able to learn so much from his dad, the way that he did, that it wound up translating into a career that quarterbacks in this day and age can even dream of having.
What was great about Peyton, too, if you think about 2013, despite the fact, yes, they lost that year's Super Bowl to the Seattle Seahawks 40-38, but the regular season that he had was one for the ages. Over 5,477 yards, 55 touchdowns that season.
That just goes to show you, number one, the guy still had it, and number two, playing for the team that he did in Denver, a world beater going into that Super Bowl with a tremendous receiving core in the Thomas guys, and also not a great but a really decent running back core, and of course playing behind that offensive line that he did, just goes to show you that Peyton was still the man in that league.
He was. And you know what? He built the Colts franchise. That's another thing about him too. I know people will talk about today with Andrew Luck, but honestly, if it wasn't for Peyton Manning, that and the place that so many people should say is the house that Peyton built, Lucas Oil Stadium.
Yep.
If it wasn't for Peyton Manning, that franchise wouldn't be where it was today. Jim Irsay wouldn't have amassed the profits and the money that he had because of Peyton. Without Peyton Manning.
Yep.
And without Bill Polian's genius to select him number one overall in the 98 draft. Because imagine that year. It was between him and Ryan Leaf. And
to think, that 1998 class consisted of the first two picks being Manning and Ryan Leaf. Whereas Manning is going to make the Hall of Fame 5 years from now, Ryan Leaf lasted barely 4 years with the Chargers and the Cowboys. And not only did he have to overcome a brain tumor, he's also had multiple run-ins with the law.
Exactly. So it's night and day.
Night and day. And listening to Peyton's press conference on ESPN radio earlier today, it was obvious that that the fact that he came to grips with his career being over was really choking at him. And of course, the first thing that he talked about in his speech, his retirement speech, was the very first game that he played, and it just so happened to be against a current Hall of Famer, Dan Marino.
That's right. Isn't that crazy?
His very first game was against Dan Marino.
And that was his rookie season when he had one of the worst statistics of his career.
Had set the rookie record for quarterbacks by throwing the most interceptions in one season.
And to go from that to having records in passing yards, touchdowns, wins, 180. He actually tied in regular season victories, but overall victories, including the playoffs, 200 victories, and 14 Pro Bowls. 14 Pro Bowls, 15 of 18 years in the playoffs.
Yeah.
14 times he had 4,000-yard seasons. He's done everything and then some. He's made his teammates good, too.
Yeah.
And they've made him good, too. It's always a great symbiotic relationship he's had with his players because he tells them what he expects out of them.
Yeah.
That you're going to go this way, you're going to run on that route, you're going to make this kind of play. He is really a savant on that field. The way he's able to envision what's going to happen.
Yep.
It's sad. I want to cry right now.
I'll tell you what. He at least he was able to show a little bit of a sense of humor during his retirement speech because he talked about all of the things that he was going to miss in the game.
Sorry.
He even joked he was going to miss playing against the Patriots, and he was going to miss the Patriot fans. And, of course, the Patriot fans were going to miss him because the Patriots wound up getting 11 wins against him lifetime.
I know. Believe me, that's maybe the only thing he wished that didn't happen in his career, losing 11 times to Tom Brady. But those matches were epic. They were classic matches, up and down.
Yeah.
Titanic-sized battles that I don't think we will honestly ever see again in our lifetime.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think Peyton played his brother Eli twice when he was with the Colts, and I think one time when he was with the Broncos. He was undefeated in 3 meetings with Eli Manning.
I know, in games that mattered.
Yeah, in the games that really mattered.
Basically Manning was able to outdid Brady, but it's just I'm sorry, folks, if I'm looking a little upset because honestly, I wasn't a fan of the Colts. I wasn't a fan of the Broncos. I was a Peyton Manning fan.
Yeah.
I was just purely a Peyton Manning fan for his skill set, for his ability to play the game, for his ability to see the field and to make plays change on the fly, for his sense of humor, for the good work that he does. And I know
for his charisma, too. I mean, who else would you know of that would make one single commercial after another for Sony, for Nationwide Insurance, for Papa John's, and so many other franchises that he did. I'm always going to remember him for those Nationwide Insurance commercials. Which reminds me, I wonder what his next Nationwide Insurance commercial is going to be and what his first one is going to be after his retirement.
I'm going to retire right now, Hal.
Or how about this? Retirement is so boring.
That's so much better.
He needs something to do right now. Which leads me, which leads me to this next question. There's been talk that maybe he'll go into broadcasting, maybe he'll go into coaching, or maybe he'll go into a front office position.
I think there are several teams that could use his front office ability. In fact, if I'm the Cleveland Browns, I get rid of Scott Podesta, and just lure Peyton Manning to your team.
There's been a lot of Peyton Manning to the Tennessee Titans rumors, and don't be surprised if you see him maybe return to his roots, so to speak. What about him returning to the University of Tennessee?
Well, considering the Title IX investigation right now that's going on, I don't think that would be the wisest idea for him right now. There are allegations, of course, that are coming out. There's still the Al Jazeera story about him getting HGH hormones after that plantar fascia injury.
And, of course, there's the sex scandal that's going on at Tennessee right now involving the football team.
Hence the Title IX incident. So, believe me, there are things right now that are going on that he's going to probably have to try and get through at the moment. But for now, today was just his day in the sunshine to remember his life, his career, and what he really contributed to the NFL.
And the words of praise that he wound up getting from so many different corners of the sport. Even Tom Brady posted a Facebook message congratulating him for a career. You know that a guy like Tom Brady, who had so many fierce battles with Peyton Manning on the field, a guy that he beat 11 times in 17 opportunities, including playoffs, he knew exactly what kind of player that Peyton was because he saw it firsthand.
It was a good competitive battle. But you know what? Congratulations, Peyton, on everything that you've done. We wish you the best of luck in your next, in your future endeavors, whatever it is, coaching, front office work, or more commercials, acting, whatever it is, Peyton Manning. We love you, we respect you, and we admire you. And it's just, honestly, it's going to make me cry if I say this anymore.
Yeah, and now that Peyton is gone, you look at some of the star quarterbacks that are left in the game. You've got Tom Brady, who's been in the game 16 years. He claims that he wants to play until he's 48 years of age.
Or until his arm falls off.
There's Drew Brees also, and there have been some questions about where his career is right now. He's had 15 years in the game, 15 great years, and he's won a championship to boot. And then you have the other guys. Ben Roethlisberger, 12 years.
Yep.
Joe Flacco, 8 years.
Eli Manning.
Brother Eli, he's had 12 great years with the Giants.
2 Super Bowls.
And 2 Super Bowl championships. Matt Ryan, who's had 8 years. Colin Kaepernick, who's had 5 years in the game.
Even though last year I wouldn't consider one of his greatest years. And this is the reclamation year, if you will. His renaissance could be this year.
Aaron Rodgers had 11 years.
And he's had an amazing career after being a backup to Brett Favre for so many years and finally getting his opportunity. He is the next, to me, the next he's already had his Peyton Manning moments. He's had his great career moments, and there are more in store for Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
And there's more even in the tank for Tom Brady, which is unbelievable considering how many years he's been in the game.
And some of the other quarterbacks that are still around. Phillip Rivers of the Chargers, 12 years.
If his team if their running back can actually do a lot better, if their offensive line can actually prevent him from getting sacked 30-plus times.
And also Andy Dalton of the Bengals, who's had 5 really solid years.
If his team can actually win a playoff game. I know it sounds like I'm making negative comments out there, but unfortunately, it's the reality of the situation that Andy Dalton's team has unfortunately not won a single playoff game since he's been their starter. They've done great in the regular season. When it comes to the playoffs, somehow this team chokes. Even though, yes, Andy Dalton is not at fault for this past year's playoffs. He was injured, unfortunately, and that's when they had to bring in A.J. McCarron to be the starter.
Yeah.
So right there, you can't blame Andy for that. But this year, this is going to be the last straw. If Andy Dalton can't lead his team to a playoff victory, not only will he's going to feel some reaction from the front office of Cincinnati, but the head coach, Marvin Lewis, is going to get something.
Yeah.
But it's good you bring up players. You know what's coming up in 2 days?
Free agency begins.
The 2016 season officially gets underway, and we're already hearing some of the top names like Von Miller and Josh Norman and even Muhammad Wilkerson are all being tagged.
Yeah, Muhammad Wilkerson actually got the franchise tag from the Jets, and Josh Norman, he got a franchise tag from the Carolina Panthers.
He had 4 interceptions last year, one of the best cover corners in the league, so at least they keep their premier cornerback in that defense.
And Kirk Cousins got a franchise tag from the Redskins because they were unable to agree to terms.
So that's a 1-year, $18 million contract that he's got going for this year until they can work out a long-term deal. And Joe Flacco just reworked his deal that he signed 2 years ago.
Yeah, he signed until 2021 now.
Yeah, with the Baltimore Ravens, and they had to for cap reasons. And the NFL actually raised the salary cap to $155 million. So now, will that help the Jets, considering the money that they were in, that they had to their name? Now, with the fact that they tagged Wilkerson, will they have enough to sign Fitz
Ryan Fitzpatrick, that's a really good question because there's him to consider, and then there's one of their other free agent defensive linemen to consider. He's drawing a lot of interest lately.
Damon Harrison.
Damon Harrison has drawn a ton of interest from other teams.
I don't blame them. Honestly, I think he's going to probably be let go. There's no way the Jets are going to be able to re-sign him. And Chris Ivory, he's done.
Yeah, Chris Ivory has drawn some interest of his own. And if Damon Harrison leaves, do you think this opens the door for the kid from USC, Leonard Williams, to maybe get a starting spot?
Oh, without a doubt it does. It really does open the door for him because it was really a lot. It will open the door for him. And not only that, if the Jets, here's the situation, Fitzpatrick, they really need to re-sign him.
Yeah.
Look at he had a career season. Honest to God. I know you have not been exactly the biggest Fitzpatrick fan in the past, but you can't deny what he did this year with both Eric Decker and Brandon Marshall.
Fitz had a very good season playing for the Jets. You wonder whether him playing for this type of offense was more of a testament to his skill set suiting that offense, or whether he was just out of place playing in Buffalo and with the St. Louis, now Los Angeles Rams, and also the Tennessee Titans.
I think it's a combination of the skill set that worked for the team because you got to understand whose offensive coordinator was. Former Buffalo head coach Chan Gailey. Mm-hmm. So he knew the system from day one when he went to training camp. Also, in the past, when he was with Chan Gailey in Buffalo, remember that one season? He had a great season one year. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I remember it was 2012 where he got that insane contract in October, and things went to hell afterwards for the Buffalo Bills and him.
Yep. Speaking of the Jets, just to give you an idea how much Ryan Fitzpatrick is wanted back by Brandon Marshall, his top receiver last year. Brandon Marshall posted an Instagram video of him playing with a couple of miniature teddy bears, and he was pretending that one of the bears was himself and that the other bear was Ryan Fitzpatrick. And one of the bears was holding a little football, and he pretended that the little teddy bear was throwing that football to the bear that represented Marshall. So this just goes to show you Brandon Marshall really wants Ryan Fitzpatrick back as a Jet next season, which is really saying something considering that Brandon Marshall does not necessarily work well with a lot of good quarterbacks.
I think, you know what, just the chemistry that they had in the field together this year, they were able to anticipate each other's every move, and they just worked very well together, and I think that's why Marshall is going out of his way, even making a very silly bear gesture. Well, maybe he's silly to me and fun at the same time, but still, he's making an outward gesture to Fitz to say, hey, man, I love the way you played with me this year. We got to be together for this coming season. I cannot work well with any other quarterback. I want you back, man.
From what I understand, I think they're only allowed one franchise tag every NFL team, correct?
Usually, you have one franchise tag, and there's two different types. There's the regular franchise tag, and then there's the transition tag. Mm-hmm. The franchise tag, what you do with that is you pay the average, most of the tags, you pay the average salaries of the top 5 players in that particular position. So if you give him a franchise tag, that's $18 million right there that he would get for that one season. Or if you're, say, a defensive lineman, you can get between $14-15 million for that 1 year. Mm-hmm. Imagine that. You make that much money in 1 year.
Amazing. And you wonder why certain individuals that are not necessarily sports fans, why they always complain about all these athletes getting so much money per year.
Well, this is how the sport is set up. This is how the system is, what the system is in place. We can be upset about all we want and be jealous about it, which, is normal for most people, to be jealous of the fact that they're making the kind of money that we wish we could make. But they have the skill set. And these teams have the money to give them that kind of contract. So, we can be upset all we want, but this is how it is, folks.
Now,
I know it sounds very unsympathetic to me and very nasty, but I'm sorry.
Not only, well, to follow up on that, we have to consider the changing times in this in professional sports. Let me give you an example. Many years ago, I interviewed a former AFL player, Fred the Hammer Williamson, who went on to become a really successful actor. Fred the Hammer Williamson played 9 years in the AFL, mostly for the Chiefs.
From dusk till dawn.
That's right. He was the actor that was in From Dusk Till Dawn.
I remember that movie.
Do you know how much Fred the Hammer Williamson made his first contract with the Chiefs?
Probably somewhere in like the tens of thousands, like,
$3,000.
wow, even lower than what I thought.
And another guy, Ben Davidson, spent his entire career playing for the Raiders. Well, actually, he spent the majority of his career playing for the Raiders. You know how much he made playing for the Raiders 1 year?
Not as much as what you would see players today.
$4,000.
I know. But you know what? This is how the system...
Yes, this is how the system works. And eventually, as the years were going to go on, eventually these guys were going to command more money. Did you really think that these guys were going to continue playing for $3,000 to $4,000 a season?
Heck no.
These guys were going to want more money. This just goes with the changing times. Things evolve. Society evolves. Technology evolves. Human beings evolve. Inflation. You have to consider inflation in this game. That's what happens when you have the free enterprise system. These guys, eventually, they're going to be demanding more money. It's not just in professional sports either. It's the medical field, the field of law.
Business,
being a police officer, being a firefighter. Somewhere down the line, these guys were going to command more money. There are native New Yorkers leaving the city to earn more money as police officers in other cities. I mean, there are guys moving to Atlanta, to Seattle. They're offering the most money as police officers.
I know.
Not to say anything about our city, because our city makes good money for their policemen. But would you rather stay in the city for less money, or would you go to another city and try and get more money?
I would go to a city for more money. Granted, that is not nice, and it sounds crude on my part, but at the same time, it could be a different situation, but you know what?
Money talks.
Money talks.
That's the bottom line. Money talks. But just to give you an idea about what's going to happen with the Broncos, guess what happened with his potential replacement, Brock Osweiler? Did you hear about this? TMZ Sports caught the whole thing. Brock Osweiler and his wife were coming out of a restaurant in Arizona, and they were getting harassed really abusively by this woman and her boyfriend and this other group of people. First off, Brock Osweiler made the mistake of shoving that woman away from him with his right hand.
That was stupid.
And then as Osweiler tried to go to his car, the woman's boyfriend snuck up from behind, shoved Osweiler so hard that he almost hit his head on his car. First of all, you never, ever touch a woman like that. Specifically, shoving a woman away the way he did. Secondly, at least Brock Osweiler had enough sense to try and gather his wife and their friends and get into the car. And you know what? It's a lucky thing that he walked away, because if not, he would have been arrested by police who were on the scene to try and break everything up.
I know. It could have got even worse. But the fact that he did put his hands on a woman is not good, and I bet you the PR people in Denver are not exactly thrilled with him on that count.
Oh, not even close.
I bet you they probably got in contact with him and said, Brock, what are you effing kidding me? You don't put your hands on a woman. First off, despite the fact that you play for us, you just don't do that at all. In polite society, you do not do that. It's just not right. It's wrong to put your hands on a woman. Two, you are a professional athlete. You represent us. What you do, say, or act is a reflection on us as well.
And with all of the incidents of domestic violence against women being perpetrated by countless NFL players, the last thing the Broncos needed was another black eye like this.
Well, hopefully he learned his lesson, and I hope that woman is all right. And you know what? Anyway, now let's get into some of the things in the other world of sports. I'm going to give you the sports skinny quickly. At UFC 196 this past Saturday in MGM Grand, the two big upsets of the evening. Conor McGregor losing in a welterweight fight, not for his featherweight championship, because of the fact that the two competitors, Nate Diaz and himself, were in two different weight classes. 170 pounds, I believe, for McGregor, 169 for Nate Diaz. And therefore, they had to do a welterweight fight, because Rafael Dos Anjos was not available, unfortunately, due to a foot injury. And Nate Diaz was able to get him in a rare naked chokehold in the second round at 4 minutes and 12 seconds, giving Conor McGregor his first loss in 6 years.
Yep. And not only did Conor McGregor become the victim of an upset, so did Holly Holm against Miesha Tate.
It's incredible. Holly Holm, the woman who handed Ronda Rousey her first career defeat in November in Australia at Etihad Stadium in the second round due to a third round kick in the temple, was lost 4 months later to Miesha Tate via submission, a rare naked chokehold in the 5th round, and she didn't even tap out. Holly, she passed out.
Holly is not going to tap out because Holly is not a quitter, but how about the moment that Miesha Tate has set for herself, winning the championship again?
But not only that, Miesha Tate, if you recall, lost not once but twice to Ronda Rousey. This kind of vindicates Ronda.
Yeah,
it does. Because Holly Holm, you would think she would have been a little more prepared for this fight and all that.
Yeah.
Been able to win this fight. And the fact she lost to the very person that Ronda defeated twice at least gives some vindication to Ronda.
Yeah, and speaking of Ronda Rousey, just to show you how much of an ice queen she is inside the octagon, one of her managers told her about the Tate versus Holm fight. And what was Rousey's response? Time to get back to work. That's it. She didn't say congratulations or make any kind of comment. Time to get back to work. And that's exactly what she's doing right now.
This actually creates a great storyline, though, for the women's bantamweight division. The big three now that will be referred to. But you know who's going to be the extra caveat in this division? And you wouldn't think of this? Amanda Nunes. She had a big victory against the Russian Valentina Shevchenko by unanimous decision this past weekend. She's considered the number 4 woman in the bantamweight division for women. She could potentially move up and really be the wild card in this whole story, in this whole saga for the women's bantamweight championship. Another great person that I really love in the women's division, in the strawweight division, their champion, and the name is pretty hard to pronounce, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, who they panned the camera to, and the crowd went crazy for her.
Yeah.
The women's division, this is a Divas Revolution right here in UFC.
And I love seeing how UFC really promotes their female fighters the way they do. I don't think you could go anywhere into an MMA fight or any type of UFC sanctioned fight and not ask or not talk about the sport without mentioning names like Tate, Rousey, Holm, Cyborg,
Van Zandt. Yeah.
Van Zandt as well, and the other couple of fighters that you mentioned.
Amanda Nunes.
All of these women have become stars in the sport, and it's great to see that type of women's sport evolve the way it has.
As for Conor McGregor, this is a huge loss, though, to Nate Diaz. It really showed that he should have never went up a weight class. That was a big mistake on his part. He got way too gassed in the second round. He gave his back to Nate Diaz, which, if you're an MMA fighter, that is a huge no-no when you give your back to your opponent. You should put a sign that's on you that says, choke me right now.
Yep.
And unfortunately, he suffered a rare naked chokehold because of that. in the first round, Conor McGregor had him. He forced a cut on his on Nate Diaz's right eye, but Nate Diaz didn't give a crap at all.
Yeah.
He's that kind of fighter that you make me bleed, it's not going to stop me. It's just going to make me want to hurt you even more, like a rabid dog. And he was unrelenting on him in the second round, and you saw with the combinations and hits.
Speaking of chokeholds, WWE had their Roadblock pay-per-view take place recently.
Actually, it's taking place this Saturday.
Well, it's coming up this coming weekend, and it's called Roadblock. And this, if I'm not mistaken, is a precursor to WrestleMania.
Yes, you got the World Heavyweight title match, Triple H defending against Dean Ambrose.
And there's a lot of rumors involving Triple H because his contract as an active wrestler is going to expire soon.
After WrestleMania. So right now, that could really see him lose the championship right there. And you know what? Honestly, for Triple H, I like the guy, but just stop. Just go to the front office and be a full-time front office person.
Not only that, but he's approaching his 47th birthday. How much longer does he think that he can actually compete?
Oh, him and The Undertaker are the kind of guys that will never, ever quit. You would really have to put them in sort of a, no offense, and it's really insensitive, but Daniel Bryan's situation in order to force them to quit, or in an Edge-type situation. Other than that, if they feel as though they can still do it, they will keep fighting until something really bad might potentially happen. And, that's unfortunate to say something like that, but these are the type of guys that they don't know the word quit. They don't know the word give up. They will keep fighting until there's nothing left. And Triple H will defend against Dean Ambrose, but the NXT division is actually is a part of this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Revival, Dash Wilder and Scott Dawson, the current champions, against Colin Cassidy and Enzo Amore. I love this team. They are fun to watch, and they have Carmella, the Princess of Staten Island, as their valet.
Yeah.
The current NXT Divas champion. Isn't that awesome? The Princess of Staten Island?
Yeah. It's good to see Staten Island's own make it into the big time.
Well, she's not even from Staten Island. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
That's her whole character. And Brock Lesnar with his loudmouth manager, who I like personally, Paul Heyman.
Yeah.
Red Hook Brooklyn, against Bray Wyatt.
Yeah. And probably the other big story involving WWE, Shane McMahon's made his return.
Who would have thought Shane O'Mac 2 weeks ago interrupting that ceremony for the Vince and Jay McMahon Excellence Awards?
Which I think is a bogus thing to begin with. But that's another story for another day.
To Stephanie McMahon. And he said, you two have run the company into the ground.
Well, he's kind of right, because consider what's happened with that company. The ludicrous gimmicks and storylines that they've got going, the high incidence of wrestlers that have been getting hurt one day after another. Naturally, he was going to react that way.
Emma got hurt at an NXT event. We had multiple injuries to Sheamus, and he's still all right. Charlotte had a head injury, too.
Uh-oh.
And she's still able to compete. We've had injuries to Nikki Bella had to have surgery on her neck. John Cena had his second injury happen. Daniel Bryan had to retire because of the multiple concussions he's suffered. Randy Orton had a neck injury too, or a spine injury. Like, this is injury after injury. Cesaro is injured. T.J. Hart.
Yeah.
Natalia's husband injured for the second time in his career. It's real. And then, of course, you had the stupid suspension of Titus O'Neil.
Yeah, which I really don't get, to be honest with you. Of course, there is some sad news in the WWE world, because a former WWE superstar of theirs passed away, and that's Blackjack Mulligan. Blackjack Mulligan passed away after a long illness. Blackjack Mulligan had one of the most memorable careers that any wrestler could ever have. Not only did he wrestle briefly for WWE, he wrestled for World Class Championship Wrestling, he wrestled in the NWA, he wrestled in Japan, and he was one of the roughest, toughest, meanest, dirtiest guys to ever step into the squared circle. He was a multiple-time champion at several levels, And a lot of people also know him as the father of Barry Windham and the grandfather of Bray Wyatt.
Oh, so
And also he's also the father of Kendall Windham, who's Barry's brother. And he's also the grandfather of Bray Wyatt.
and IRS was his kid.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's Erwin R. Shicer.
Erwin R. Shyster, also known as Mike Rotunda, or VK Wall Street, if you want to go back even further than that.
I know, that's crazy. And Bray Wyatt is his kid. Mm-hmm. And Bo Dallas, who is Bray Wyatt's brother. Mm-hmm. And I know it's really sad, to see these people pass away. I remember when Dusty Rhodes, when he passed away.
Yeah,
that was incredibly that was a huge loss in the world of wrestling too, as well.
Speaking of losses, Hulk Hogan that he hopes that he could deal the tabloids a major loss because he's gone into the courtroom and he's got a $100 million lawsuit going against a tabloid in regards to a 40-second sex tape that got released recently.
And that sex tape was the reason why WWE released him from his Legends contract, because it was one thing with the sex tape, but it was the comments he made during that sex tape.
Yeah, the racist remarks that he wound up making that really cost him his what was left of his job with WWE anyway. He didn't really have much of one.
Well, just like Ric Flair, they're signed under Legends contracts where they do promotions, autograph signings. They'll come at several events. They'll, introduce things. Like, remember WrestleMania 30 when Hulk Hogan was on the stage with The Rock and Stone Cold? Mm-hmm. One of my favorite moments ever.
Yeah. Well, on the bright side, Major League Soccer began their season just recently, and ESPN had the Portland versus Columbus game going on.
That's right.
Did you see that sellout crowd that they had in Portland? They've got great fans.
They got great fans
in the city of roses.
Oh, yeah. Seattle has amazing fans.
Seattle's got terrific fans, too. A lot of people criticize them for being fair weather fans, but keep in mind, they've got the Seahawks, they've got the Mariners, they had the Supersonics taken away from them. So when you think about it, the entire Pacific Northwest has a great fan base.
I love their soccer fans. I think their soccer fans are honestly the best soccer fans in all of MLS. Mm-hmm. They really know how to come and support their team.
Yep.
They celebrate. You ever saw it was on Real Sports, how they come out and party and all that and get their crowds ready to go? Mm-hmm. It's like watching European soccer fans.
Yeah.
That's how much I love the Seattle Sounders fans.
Yeah.
As for the New York teams, of course, we had the Red Bulls had their opening game against the Toronto
Football
FC.
Club, yeah.
And unfortunately, Sebastian Giovinco dealt them a huge blow yesterday, getting a big goal on a penalty shot in the 82nd minute. Mm-hmm. Why? Because somebody decided to touch the ball with their hands, which is a no-no in soccer.
On the plus side, the other soccer team in the area, the NYCFC, wound up winning their opener against Chicago.
That's right. They beat the Fire 4-3. Thomas McNamara, Tony Taylor, Kiri Shelton, and Mix Discarud, who got the game-winning goal in the 63rd minute on a cross pass. Huge victory for them. And with Kaká on the team, no, Kaká is actually with Orlando City, but...
Mm-hmm. But we do have other action that took place in MLS.
Yeah, Orlando City tied Real Salt Lake 2-2. FC Dallas beat the Philadelphia Union 2-0. Fabian Castillo getting one of those goals, and Urruti as well. The Houston Dynamo tied the New England Revolution at 3-3. The Earthquake of San Jose defeat the Colorado Rapids 1-0. Chris Wondolowski with the 46-minute goal. The Timbers, as you mentioned, beat the Crew 2-1. That was the rematch of the MLS Cup from December. And some other cool action that took place. But this coming week, Montreal Impact, they're playing New York. Mm-hmm. And the New York City FC, they are playing Sunday at home against Toronto.
There you go. With about 10.5 minutes left, we'd be remiss if we did not mention what's going on in the other mainstream stuff. Good news for baseball fans. They're playing again. And earlier today, the Mets had a split squad situation. One team played the Cardinals, they wound up losing, but another team wound up playing the Tigers, and they wound up winning.
Which I love. I like the split squad games at times. You know, you get to see different. It gives a lot of these players an opportunity to play. You know, when they do that, because this is an audition, just like with any major sport. When they have training camp, spring training is an audition for some of these players, the mid to low tier players, to get on that roster.
And even though it's not really an audition for him, Neil Walker played in the split squad game against the Tigers, got himself a home run earlier today.
Which was awesome. And this past week, they lost to Washington 9-4, including a 4-run first inning that was involved by former player Daniel Murphy.
Yeah.
They tied against Miami 4-all. They beat Houston 3-1. In fact, I believe that was the game in which Cespedes got his first hit. And they defeated Atlanta yesterday, barely winning 7-5.
Yeah. As far as the Yankees are concerned, there's hope for the Yankees after all. Because number one, except for maybe Greg Bird, a lot of their guys are starting to slowly but surely come back healthy. And two, the young players that they have in their farm system have really shown that they are this close to being major league ready. Case in point, their shortstop prospect, Jorge Mateo. He hit this bomb of a shot to left field in the Saturday game, which wound up being which wound up being an inside the park home run. The quickness that he has around the bases is just off the charts. If he can supply a little bit more power, he might replace Didi Gregorius as the everyday shortstop, maybe even by 2017. And their other prospect, a really good-looking outfield prospect, Aaron Judge. He's got Paul Bunyan. He's got some Paul Bunyan in him. Not only is he a big, powerful dude, he stands 6'7" and is about 240 pounds.
Kind of like that guy, remember that Rookie of the Year movie, the guy who played for the Mets and all that was like big and burly and strong?
I remember him very well.
Exactly the same type of guy.
Aaron Judge has home run power, but he's supplying gap power as well. And his defense is slowly but surely rounding into form in right field. He's being projected as a potential right fielder. He could replace Carlos Beltran as the right fielder maybe by 2017. He could even get a shot at the big show sometime this summer.
Definitely.
But there is a lot of hope with the Yankee prospects. There's also their pitching prospect, James Caprielian, who they wound up drafting out of UCLA a couple of years ago. The heat that this guy is showing, there's a strong possibility he could crack the rotation. If not next year, then maybe even the year after.
Definitely. And how about what's going on else? NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, the Cobalt 400, Brad Keselowski got his first one over a year at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. At the World Golf Championship from Doral in Miami, Florida, Adam Scott, facing a 6-shot deficit with 13 holes remaining, was able to birdie, in fact, very well in the end on 6 of the next 9 holes on the back 9, and was able to win with a final round 69 score. Huge victory by 1 stroke over Bubba Watson. And in tennis today, of course, we just heard a major announcement from former world number 1 Maria Sharapova, the 5-time Grand Slam winner. She tested positive for a drug, meldonium, which was banned by the World Anti-Doping Agency January 1st of this year, that she used to treat diabetes and low magnesium.
She kind of threw everybody for a loop because when she first called this press conference, everybody thought that she was going to retire. First off, she's way too young to be retiring. She's got
28 years old.
She's got at least 5 good years of tennis left inside her. And secondly, at least she was able to own up to her mistake. A lot of people want to beat around the bush or maybe even deny that they even took an STD.
No, most people would have denied.
Let me correct myself. It was, a performance-enhancing drug. A PED is what I should say.
But the fact that she came clean about it, and she talked about this, and that she wants to do better, she will be back. I have no doubt we'll see her at the French Open because she did lose at the Australian Open in the quarterfinals to Serena Williams. And she's had multiple injuries she's suffered in the last few tournaments. So hopefully this time around, she'll come back bigger, stronger, and faster and ready to go at Roland Garros in May. As for the world of college basketball, the regular season is over. And
lots of tournaments have just got started, and we can already tell you Yale,
for the first time since 1962,
made the NCAA tournament. North Carolina, Asheville also made the NCAA tournament.
winning the Big South over
And
the
get
Winthrop
this,
Eagles.
Austin P, which is located in Tennessee. Their nickname is the Governors.
Clarksville.
Clarksville, Tennessee, won the Ohio Valley Conference tournament. And Austin P is a really interesting story because they kind of sort of have been a running joke about their name. The main joke is, what is the one chant that Austin P fans break into when they're at a game?
Oh, please don't tell me it's something to do with urination.
Let's go P! Let's go P!
I could just imagine hearing that on TBS or CBS during the NCAA tournament. And then every fan, even the fans that are up from the opposing team, they're going to be convulsing with laughter. There's no way they're going to be able to hold that back.
You know where I got that from, right? I got that from the one and only Swami of ESPN.
Oh, Chris Berman.
Chris Berman. He was the one that originated that joke. But of course, all of the Austin P students and alumni chant, "Let's go Governors." That's what the real chant is. But I thought I'd had some fun with it.
That would be funny if they really do that. But I'm very happy for Yale. One of the great storylines for this tournament already. 1962. That's the second longest active drought of any team that's made the tournament. You know what the longest is now? Dartmouth. 1959.
Yep. And just to give you, speaking of local schools, there are still 2 opportunities, 3 actually, if you count Seton Hall, which is going to be playing in the Big East tournament at the Garden in a couple of days. Wagner is playing for the Northeast Conference Championship against Fairleigh Dickinson at the Grimes Hill campus tomorrow. And tonight,
Yep.
Hofstra from Long Island is playing for the Colonial Athletic Association tournament right now as we speak against North Carolina Wilmington.
And I think even tonight, Iona.
Yes, Iona College from New Rochelle is playing against Monmouth for the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference title up in Albany.
Which is really insane. We could have 4 teams from the tri-state area in the tournament. And you know what? I really hope to see Wagner. I think they've had a great run this year. They had a great season. Bashir Mason did a wonderful job with this squad.
He's done a terrific job with that squad. And the senior leadership that he has on that team is really impeccable. Great job that he's had. Let's hope that they make the NCAAs. Now, in the big circuit of basketball, the Warriors are 1 game ahead of the 1995-96 Bulls for the best record in one season in NBA history. This in spite of the fact that they embarrassed themselves at the hands of the Lakers in L.A. yesterday.
Their 6th loss in the year.
And in the local side, the Knicks continue to slump badly, and the Nets are still putrid. As far as hockey is concerned, how about the meeting that the Islanders and Rangers had yesterday? A 4-3 first period, and then the Islanders put it away with 2 late goals to win it 6-4.
It was unfortunate they did lose 6-4 in that game. And the fact is, the way they came back in the game, you know, when they tied it up 4-4, and Eric Stahl got his first goal since being acquired from the Carolina Hurricanes.
And to think that the Rangers, all they had to give up was 1 prospect and a pair of draft picks. That is a major steal that the Rangers made.
But he's a rental. That's the problem.
Yeah. He may be a rental, but could he be the man that could put the Rangers over the top for the Stanley Cup?
I think they got some tough competition this year. You look at Anaheim, who's actually been surging. You have, of course, with 12 straight victories. You have Boston that's doing well. But the team that's really everybody's going to be looking at, the Washington Capitals. They already are going to win. They're going to win the President's Trophy. They're going to win the Metropolitan Division. This is really a great season for Ovechkin and company.
Yeah, but what are they going to do when playoff time comes around? They've got a really shaky playoff history.
It's true. They've never made it beyond the semis. Maybe they will this time.
They've got one Stanley Cup Finals in their arsenal. Other than that, nothing. Kenny Graham is back on the other side of the glass, and he is going to sign us off. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Peace, Staten Island, and go Wagner Seahawks!